I stood at the entrance of the Grand Hotel, clutching my simple black dress nervously. Tonight was my sister Mallory's 30th birthday party, and I could already hear the sound of expensive laughter floating through the glass doors. My hands trembled slightly as I approached the security guard. "I'm here for the Mallory Woodhouse party," I said quietly, showing him my phone with the invitation text she'd sent me last week. The guard looked me up and down, his eyes lingering on my modest dress and worn shoes. He checked his list twice, then shook his head firmly. "I'm sorry, miss. Your name isn't on the approved guest list." My heart sank. There must be some mistake. I'm her sister, Emma Woodhouse. She invited me personally. He checked again, more thoroughly this time. "No Emma Woodhouse on this list. I have strict instructions about who can enter tonight's event." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment as other guests in designer outfits walked past me, their jewelry sparkling under the lobby lights. The security guard's apologetic but firm expression told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a mistake at all. My mind raced back to last week's phone call with Mallory. She'd been bragging about her upcoming party, dropping names of wealthy clients and influential people who would attend her exclusive celebration. "You should come, Emma," she'd said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "It'll be good for you to see how successful people actually live." I should have known then. Mallory had always been ashamed of me, her wannabe writer's sister who still lived in a cramped apartment and wore the same 3 dresses on rotation. While she climbed the corporate ladder at Woodhouse Financial Group, I spent my days writing stories that publishers kept rejecting. "Maybe you could wear something nicer?" she'd added before hanging up. "This isn't one of your coffee shop poetry readings." Now I understood why she'd been so vague about the dress code and venue details. She never intended for me to actually make it inside. The invitation was probably just for show, so she could tell our parents she'd included me. Standing there in the hotel lobby, watching wealthy strangers glide past me toward the elevators, I felt smaller than ever. I pulled out my phone to call an Uber home, my fingers shaking with humiliation. 3 years of writing rejections, countless nights of eating ramen while Mallory posted photos of 5-star restaurants on social media, and now this. Even my own sister thought I was too embarrassing to be seen with her successful friends. "Emma?" I heard a familiar voice behind me. I turned to see Mallory herself approaching, wearing a stunning gold dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her makeup was flawless, her jewelry catching the light perfectly. She looked like she belonged in a magazine. "What are you doing down here?" she asked, glancing around nervously as if my presence might contaminate the elegant lobby. "Your security guard says I'm not on the list," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Mallory's face flushed slightly. "Oh, that. Well, you see, Emma, tonight is really important for my career. These are very influential people, and I need to make the right impression." The words hit me like a slap. She was actually admitting it. I wasn't good enough for her party. "So you deliberately left me off the guest list?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mallory's eyes darted around the lobby, making sure no one was listening to our conversation. "Look, it's not personal, Emma. It's just... these people have certain expectations. They're used to a particular lifestyle, and I can't afford to look unprofessional." I stared at her in disbelief. This was my sister, the person who used to share secrets with me when we were kids, who I'd helped with homework and comforted after bad breakups. "I see," I said quietly, turning toward the exit. "Emma, wait," Mallory called, but her voice lacked any real conviction. Just as I reached the door, it swung open, and a distinguished man in an expensive suit walked in. He had silver hair and kind eyes, and he moved with the quiet confidence that only came with real wealth and power. The lobby seemed to shift around him. Staff members straightened up, other guests turned to look, and I could feel the energy in the room change completely. Then something impossible happened. Those kind eyes met mine, and his face broke into a genuine smile of recognition. "Emma Woodhouse," the man exclaimed, his voice filled with warmth and excitement. "I can't believe it's really you." I stood frozen, my mouth slightly open. Behind me, I heard Mallory gasp audibly. The entire lobby seemed to pause, every conversation stopping as people turned to watch this powerful man greet me like an old friend. I'm sorry, I stammered. I think you might have me confused with someone else. He laughed, a rich sound that filled the space. Not at all. You're the author of Whispers in the Rain, aren't you? The story about the little girl and her grandmother's letters? My heart nearly stopped. That story had been published in a tiny literary magazine 6 months ago. I'd earned exactly $50 for it, and I thought no one had actually read it. You read my story? I managed to whisper. Read it? I've read it a dozen times. It's the most beautiful piece of writing I've encountered in years. I've been hoping to meet you. Behind me, I could practically feel Mallory's shock radiating like heat. The security guard who'd turned me away now looked confused and worried. The man extended his hand to me with genuine enthusiasm. I'm David Morrison, by the way. I should have introduced myself first, but I was just so excited to finally meet the brilliant mind behind that incredible story. My hand felt tiny in his firm, warm handshake. David Morrison. I knew that name. He was the CEO and owner of Morrison Enterprises, one of the largest companies in the city. And he was also... Wait. Mallory's voice cut through my amazement, high-pitched with shock. Mr. Morrison? What are you doing here? He turned toward her with a polite but distant smile. Hello, Mallory. I received your invitation, of course, though I have to say, meeting Emma here is an unexpected bonus. He looked back at me with that same warm expression. I hope you're planning to attend the party? I felt my cheeks burn. Actually, I was just leaving. I'm not exactly dressed for this kind of event. Mallory's face had gone completely pale. She was staring at her boss, her billionaire boss, treating her embarrassing sister like some kind of celebrity. Nonsense, Mr. Morrison said firmly. You look lovely. But you know what? I have a better idea. Would you like to skip the party and grab coffee with me instead? I'd love to discuss your writing. I glanced back at Mallory, whose mouth was hanging open in complete shock. Her perfectly planned evening was falling apart right in front of her eyes. Her boss, the man she'd been trying to impress for years, was choosing to spend time with her failure sister instead of attending her exclusive party. I don't want to keep you from the celebration, I said hesitantly. Mr. Morrison waved dismissively. Parties are just noise, Emma. Meeting a talented writer like yourself? That's truly special. He gestured toward the hotel's small cafe area. Shall we? As we walked away from the elevator bank, I could feel dozens of eyes following us. Mallory's carefully curated guest list was watching her billionaire boss choose a woman in a simple dress over her glamorous party. The cafe was quiet and dimly lit, a stark contrast to the glittering lobby. Mr. Morrison ordered 2 coffees and chose a corner table where we could talk privately. I have to ask, he said, leaning forward with genuine curiosity, how long have you been writing? Since I was 8, I admitted. I used to write little stories about everything, my pet hamster, family trips, dreams I had. My teachers always said I had imagination, but, I looked down at my coffee. But imagination doesn't pay the bills. Mr. Morrison's expression grew serious. Emma, talent like yours is incredibly rare. That story of yours, Whispers in the Rain, it moved me to tears. The way you captured the relationship between that grandmother and granddaughter, the emotional depth, the beautiful language, it was extraordinary. I felt tears prick my eyes. For 3 years, I'd received nothing but rejection letters. Publishers who said my work was too quiet, or not commercial enough, or simply not what we're looking for right now. I'm working on a novel, I found myself saying. I've been trying to get it published for 2 years, but no one seems interested. His eyes lit up immediately. What's it about? I hesitated. The story felt so personal, so close to my heart. But something about Mr. Morrison's genuine interest gave me courage. It's about 2 sisters, I began slowly. One who follows the traditional path to success, money, status, social climbing. The other who pursues her passion despite everyone telling her she's foolish. It's about family, dreams, and what success really means. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, processing my words. That sounds profound. Have you tried Morrison Publishing? I nearly choked on my coffee. Morrison Publishing? The Morrison Publishing? They're one of the biggest houses in the country. They'd never look at someone like me. Someone like you? Mr. Morrison raised an eyebrow. You mean someone with extraordinary talent and a unique voice? I shook my head. I mean someone with no connections, no platform, no literary awards or fancy MFA degree. I'm just a girl with a laptop and a dream. Emma, he said seriously, Morrison Publishing is my company, and I'm telling you right now that I want to read your manuscript. The words hit me like lightning. Morrison Publishing, the house that published best-selling authors, Pulitzer winners, literary legends, and the owner was sitting across from me asking to read my work. I don't understand, I stammered. Why would you want to help me? Because good writing is good writing, regardless of who writes it, and because I've spent enough time in this industry to recognize something special when I see it. He pulled out his business card. Send me your manuscript tomorrow. I'll read it personally. My hands trembled as I took the card. David Morrison, CEO, Morrison Enterprises and Morrison Publishing. His direct email address was printed at the bottom. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Say you'll send it, he replied with a smile. An hour later, I floated home on a cloud of disbelief. David Morrison, billionaire. David Morrison had spent an entire evening talking to me about books, writing, and storytelling. He'd shared stories about authors he'd discovered, the books that had changed his life, and his philosophy about publishing. The best stories, he'd said over our third cup of coffee, are the ones that remind us what it means to be human. I was still processing everything when my phone buzzed with an angry text from Mallory. We need to talk. Now. 20 minutes later, she was pounding on my apartment door. When I opened it, her carefully styled hair was disheveled and her makeup was smudged. She pushed past me into my tiny living room. What the hell was that about? She demanded, spinning around to face me. What do you mean? Don't play innocent with me, Emma. How do you know my boss? What's your game here? I stared at her. Game? Mallory, I met him for the first time tonight, same as you saw. Bullshit, she snapped. Billionaires don't just randomly know struggling writers. What did you do? Sleep with him? Are you some kind of escort now? The accusation hit me like a physical blow. How dare you, I said quietly, my voice shaking with hurt and anger. How dare you say something like that to me? Mallory's face was twisted with jealousy and rage. Then explain it. Explain how my loser sister suddenly becomes best friends with the most powerful man in the city. He read my story, Mallory. One story I published months ago for $50. He liked my writing. She laughed bitterly. Right, your writing. The same writing that can't get you published anywhere decent? The same writing that keeps you poor and pathetic? Each word was designed to hurt, and they hit their mark perfectly. But something had changed in me tonight. Meeting someone who valued my work, who saw potential in me, had given me a strength I didn't know I possessed. You know what, Mallory? You're right. I am poor. I do struggle. But at least I'm not so insecure that I have to exclude my own sister from my birthday party because I'm embarrassed of her. Her face flushed red. I work hard for my reputation. I can't afford to look bad in front of important people. And I work hard too, just at something you don't understand or respect. Mallory paced around my small living room like a caged animal. This is unbelievable. Years of building relationships, years of proving myself at Morrison Enterprises, and now my nobody sister waltzes in and gets his attention in 5 minutes? I didn't waltz anywhere, Mallory. You literally banned me from your party, remember? She stopped pacing and glared at me. Don't try to make me the villain here. You're up to something. I know you are. I pulled out David Morrison's business card and set it on my coffee table. He wants to read my manuscript, Mallory. He thinks it might be good enough to publish. Her eyes went wide as she stared at the card. Morrison Publishing? He offered to, but that's impossible. They don't just publish random people. Apparently they do if the writing is good enough. For a moment, Mallory looked lost, like her entire worldview was crumbling. In her mind, success only came through networking, schmoozing, and playing corporate games. The idea that talent alone could open doors was completely foreign to her. This won't last, she said finally, her voice bitter. Whatever little fantasy you're living, it won't last. Men like David Morrison don't waste time on girls like you. After she left, I sat alone in my apartment, holding David Morrison's business card and trying to believe that maybe, just maybe, my life was about to change. I sent my manuscript the next morning, along with a heartfelt thank you note for his time and encouragement. Within a week, my phone rang. Emma, this is extraordinary. David's voice was filled with excitement. I stayed up all night reading it. It's beautiful, honest, and deeply moving. I want to publish it. The words didn't seem real. I had to sit down to keep from falling over. Are you serious? I whispered. Completely serious. I'm having my team fast-track it through editing and production. With the right marketing push, this could be something special. 3 months later, The Space Between Sisters hit bookstore shelves. David had been right about it being special. The reviews were incredible. Readers connected with the story of sibling rivalry, family expectations, and finding your own path to happiness. Within 2 weeks, we'd sold 15,000 copies. Book clubs were choosing it for their monthly reads. Literary bloggers were calling it a stunning debut from a powerful new voice. I could barely process what was happening. Bookstores invited me for readings. Podcasts wanted interviews. Local newspapers ran features about the overnight success story, though they had no idea about the years of rejection and struggle that led to this moment. The book signing at downtown's largest bookstore was packed. I sat behind a table, watching a line of readers stretch around the block, all waiting to meet me and get their copies signed. "Your book made me call my sister," one woman told me tearfully. "We hadn't spoken in 2 years, but your story reminded me that family is complicated but worth fighting for." A teenager clutched her copy like treasure. "I want to be a writer too, but everyone says it's impossible. You give me hope." An elderly man shook my hand firmly. "Haven't read fiction in 20 years, but my daughter insisted I read yours." Glad she did. Reminded me of my own brother. Each conversation filled my heart. This was why I wrote, to connect with people, to help them feel less alone, to remind them that their stories mattered too. Between signings, I spotted a familiar figure lurking near the back of the store. Mallory stood behind a bookshelf, watching the crowd around my table with an unreadable expression. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away and disappeared toward the exit. But not before I saw something that looked like regret flash across her face. That evening, David called to congratulate me on the successful signing. "The publisher wants to discuss your next book," he said. "This is just the beginning, Emma." "I can't believe this is real," I admitted. 6 months ago, I was eating ramen every night and getting rejection letters. Now you're a published author with a bright future ahead of you. Would you like to celebrate? There's a wonderful restaurant downtown that I think you'd enjoy." Something in his tone made my heart skip. This didn't sound like a business dinner. "I'd love to," I said softly. The restaurant was elegant but not flashy, with soft lighting and intimate tables. David had chosen a quiet corner where we could talk without interruption. "I have a confession," he said after we'd ordered. "When I first read Whispers in the Rain, I felt this connection to the author. Your writing has this honesty, this emotional depth that spoke to something in me." I felt my cheeks warm. "It's just how I see the world, I guess." "It's more than that, Emma. You have this gift for finding beauty in ordinary moments, for making people feel understood." He paused, looking nervous for the first time since I'd known him. "I've been hoping to meet you for months." "What are you saying?" I asked, though my heart was already racing with the possibility. David reached across the table and gently took my hand. "I'm saying that falling for your writing was easy. Falling for you as a person has been inevitable." I stared at him in amazement. This brilliant, successful, kind man was telling me he had feelings for me, not because of my success or my potential, but because of who I was. "I feel the same way," I whispered. Over dinner, we talked about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. David told me about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness that came with success, about how my writing had reminded him what really mattered in life. "I've dated women who wanted my money, my status, my connections," he said. "But you're the first person who's interested in my thoughts about books, about life, about what makes people tick." When he walked me to my door that night, he kissed me softly under the porch light. It felt like the beginning of something wonderful. "I want to take this slow," he said. "You're too important to rush." I nodded, my heart full of hope and happiness. For the first time in my life, everything felt like it was falling into place. Word of my relationship with David spread quickly through the city's social circles. Within a week, Gossip blogs were speculating about the mystery writer who'd captured the billionaire's heart. I tried to ignore the attention, focusing instead on my writing and my growing relationship with David. He was thoughtful, intelligent, and genuinely interested in my work. When I worried about our different backgrounds, he reminded me that connection was about souls, not bank accounts. But not everyone was happy about our relationship. Mallory called me on a Tuesday morning, her voice tight with anger. "I can't believe you're actually dating him." "Hello to you too, Mallory." "Don't be cute with me, Emma. Do you have any idea how this looks? How humiliating this is for me?" I set down my coffee and sighed. "How is my relationship humiliating for you?" "Because I work for him. Because I've been trying to get his attention for 3 years. Because everyone at the office is talking about how the boss is dating his employee's weird sister." Her words stung, but I was learning to protect myself from her jealousy. "I'm sorry you're uncomfortable, but my personal life isn't about you. Isn't it? Everything always comes so easy for you, doesn't it?" I almost laughed. "Easy? Mallory, I've been rejected by publishers for years. I've lived on ramen and hope. Nothing about my life has been easy. But now you have everything." Mallory's voice cracked with emotion. "The successful book, the perfect boyfriend, the respect I've been working toward my entire career. And you just stumbled into it." "I didn't stumble into anything. I worked for this, just differently than you work for your goals." There was a long silence before Mallory spoke again, her voice bitter. "He'll get tired of you, you know? Men like David Morrison don't end up with girls like you. This is just a phase." After she hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling sad and frustrated. No matter what I achieved, Mallory would always see me as competition, rather than family. David noticed my mood when he picked me up for dinner that evening. "Everything okay?" he asked, his hand warm on mine. I told him about Mallory's call, about her jealousy and anger. He listened thoughtfully, his expression growing serious. "I'm sorry she's treating you this way," he said finally. "Family should be supportive, especially during good times. She's always been competitive. I hoped maybe my success would help her see me differently." "Some people can't handle other people's happiness," David said gently. "That says more about them than about you." Over the following months, Mallory's behavior at work became increasingly erratic. According to David, she was making mistakes, missing deadlines, and alienating colleagues with her attitude. "She seems angry all the time," he told me one evening. "HR has received several complaints about her behavior." I felt guilty, wondering if my relationship with David was affecting Mallory's professional life. Maybe I should talk to her. "Emma, you're not responsible for your sister's choices. She's an adult who needs to handle her own emotions professionally." But Mallory wasn't handling anything professionally. Unknown to David or anyone else at Morrison Enterprises, she was spiraling deeper into financial trouble. Her expensive lifestyle, the designer clothes, luxury apartment, and high-end social life, cost far more than her salary could support. She'd been using credit cards to maintain her image, racking up debt she couldn't repay. When that wasn't enough, she started borrowing money from friends, always promising to pay them back soon. But soon never came. Instead, Mallory made a decision that would destroy everything she'd worked for. She began skimming money from client accounts, small amounts that she thought wouldn't be noticed. Just temporary borrowing, she told herself. She'd pay it back as soon as she figured out her finances. The theft was discovered during a routine audit. David called me early on a Tuesday morning, his voice heavy with disappointment and concern. "Emma, I need to tell you something about Mallory. The auditors found discrepancies in several client accounts. Money has been stolen, and the evidence points to her." My heart sank. "How much money?" "Nearly $200,000 over 6 months. I felt sick. Mallory had always been materialistic, but I never imagined she'd steal. What happens now? I have to fire her immediately. The company is also considering pressing criminal charges. This is embezzlement, Emma. It's a felony." That afternoon, I watched from across the street as Mallory was escorted out of the Morrison Enterprises building by security. She carried a small box of personal items, her head down, her career in ruins. She saw me waiting by her car and approached slowly, her face streaked with tears. "I suppose you're here to gloat," she said bitterly. I'm here because you're my sister, I replied quietly. And because I love you, even when you make terrible choices. She broke down completely then, sobbing against her car. I lost everything, Emma. My job, my reputation, my life, and I'm probably going to prison. Why did you do it? I asked gently, handing her tissues from my purse. I couldn't keep up, Mallory sobbed. The lifestyle, the expenses, the image. Everyone expected me to live a certain way, and I couldn't afford it on my salary. I thought I could borrow the money temporarily and pay it back. Mallory, you could have asked for help. You could have changed your lifestyle. Ask who for help? You, the sister I've spent years putting down? Besides, you didn't have money then. She was right. 6 months ago, I couldn't have helped her financially. But now? The company is pressing charges, she continued, her voice hollow. David's lawyers say I could get 5 to 10 years in prison. My heart broke for her, despite everything she'd done to me. She was still my sister, still the girl who used to build blanket forts with me when we were kids. That evening, I made a decision that David tried to talk me out of. Emma, she stole from my company, from clients who trusted us. I can't just ignore that. I'm not asking you to ignore it. I'm asking you to let me pay the money back and accept her resignation instead of pressing charges. David stared at me in disbelief. Emma, that's $200,000, and it sets a terrible precedent. I know how much it is. My book royalties can cover it, and I'll make sure she gets help, therapy, financial counseling, whatever she needs. Why would you do this for someone who's treated you so terribly? I thought about all the years of Mallory's cruelty, her jealousy, her attempts to diminish my dreams. But I also thought about family, forgiveness, and the person I wanted to be. Because she's my sister. Because everyone deserves a second chance. And because holding on to anger will only hurt me in the end. David was quiet for a long time. Finally, he sighed. If this is what you want, I'll talk to the board. But she can never work in finance again. And she has to agree to counseling and community service. When I called Mallory with the news, she was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. You're saving me from prison? She whispered finally. I'm giving you a chance to make things right. What you do with that chance is up to you. She started crying again, but this time they sounded like tears of relief rather than despair. The legal arrangements took several weeks to finalize. Mallory agreed to all the conditions: repayment, counseling, community service, and a permanent ban from working in financial services. The story was kept quiet to protect both her and the company's reputation. During this time, Mallory and I had several difficult but necessary conversations. She had to face the reality of her choices and the pain she'd caused, not just to the company, but to our relationship. I've been jealous of you my entire life, she admitted during one of our talks. You were always the creative one, the one with imagination and dreams. I chose the practical path because I thought it would make me superior to you. You were successful in your field, Mallory. You didn't need to tear me down to build yourself up. I know that now, but watching you achieve everything I thought was impossible, it made me realize how empty my own success felt. She'd started therapy and was working part-time at a nonprofit organization, a humbling experience that was slowly teaching her the value of work that helped others rather than just building personal wealth. I'm learning to live differently, she told me. Smaller apartment, simpler clothes, real relationships instead of networking contacts. It's scary, but it's also freeing. A year later, my second book was about to be published, and David and I had moved in together. Our relationship had grown stronger through supporting each other during the difficult period with Mallory. I love how you handled that situation, he told me one evening as we cooked dinner together. It showed me the kind of person you really are, someone who chooses compassion over revenge. Mallory had slowly begun rebuilding her life. The nonprofit work had connected her with her long-buried passion for helping others. She was considering going back to school for social work, a career change that would use her organizational skills for meaningful purposes. She still struggled with our relationship, often seeming uncertain about how to interact with me now that our roles had shifted. The sister who'd once looked down on me was now receiving my help and support. I don't know how to thank you, she said during one of our weekly coffee meetings. I don't know how to make up for all the years I was horrible to you. You don't have to make up for anything, I replied. Just be better going forward. Be the sister I always hoped you could be. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm trying. It's hard to patterns that have been there since childhood, but I'm trying. 2 years after that humiliating night at the hotel, I stood in the same lobby for the launch party of my third book. This time, I was the guest of honor, surrounded by readers, publishers, and literary friends who'd become my chosen family. David stood beside me, proud and supportive, introducing me to industry colleagues and celebrating my success. But the most meaningful moment came when I spotted a familiar figure near the entrance. Mallory approached slowly, carrying a copy of my new book. She looked different. Simpler clothes, less makeup, but somehow more genuine than I'd ever seen her. I read it, she said quietly, holding up the book. It made me cry. The part about forgiveness, I know you wrote that for me. I wrote it for anyone who's struggled with family relationships, I replied. But yes, I hoped you'd see yourself in it. She took a deep breath. I'm proud of you, Emma. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. You followed your dreams when everyone said you were crazy, and you proved them all wrong. Thank you, I said, meaning it completely. As the party continued around us, Mallory and I stood together, not as the successful sister and the failure, but as two women who'd learned that true success comes from being true to yourself and choosing love over bitterness. The girl who'd once been banned from her sister's party for looking poor had found something far more valuable than wealth or status. I'd found my voice, my purpose, and finally, my family.